This is one of the most beautiful and moving of Rembrandt's late history paintings. It depicts the Roman heroine Lucretia, who was raped by Tarquin. Rather than live with the shame of having been raped, she took the decision to commit suicide. And Rembrandt depicts her in the moment just after she's plunged the dagger into her own breast. Her hand reaches up to pull the bell cord to summon her family members. When they come, she tells them that the reasons why she committed suicide and then expires. What's so extraordinary about Rembrandt's depiction of Lucretia is that he gives such a vivid sense of the difficulty that she must have gone through in making this decision and her resignation to her fate. And I think that's what Rembrandt evokes so well in very subtle ways. The expression in her eyes, these sort of dark hollows around her eyes, and the deep shadows of the far side of her face, and the slight tilt of her head downwards. It's almost as if she's beginning to fall forwards in death. A couple of years earlier, in 1664, he did another painting of Lucretia that's also in the exhibition. That depicts her in the moment before she plunges the dagger in her breast. And it's fascinating to compare the two images because the earlier Lucretia shows her struggling with that decision. Her eyes are reddened and there's a glint of tears in her eyes, that she's really having difficulty taking that final step of plunging the dagger into her breast. But here in this painting, we see her resigned to her fate, that she is going to die. The painting is shown in the context of Rembrandt's lake technique. One thing I find so extraordinary is the contrast between the very rich, painterly application of paint in her sleeves. It's very textured. He uses the palette knife to create these almost square areas of paint, and you see very clearly the ridges made by the palette knife. In contrast to that is the very smooth way and streaky way that Rembrandt has applied the paint in her chemise. And you get such a vivid sense of the softness of that fabric and these layers of very thin, almost gossamer thin linen. And the blood, as it seeps through the fabric, it's not flowing, it's just a gentle seepage through the fabric. And I think that evokes in such a wonderful way that this is a more considered act than a dramatic, sudden plunge. You know, she's really thought so deeply and in such a prolonged way, and she's become resolute. I think this painting is a beautiful example of Rembrandt's late painting style because of the variety of ways in which he applies the paint to the canvas. If you look at her sleeve and you look at her chemise and you look at her face and her jeweled headdress, they're all painted in a very different and distinct way. In that way, Rembrandt evokes the sense of texture and richness. Other artists were more precise in mimicking the details of a particular fabric, but Rembrandt just suggests the richness and the texture.